Our next speaker, we are absolutely privileged to have a relatively new commissioner at the FERC, a wonderful lawyer in her own right before she went on to the exalted position of commissioner. And we are so happy to have our dear friend Allison Clements here with us, and thrilled for your appointment to the commission, and really looking forward to hearing what your thoughts and vision are.
Thank you, Sheila. That's really nice. It's nice to be here and to learn more about USEA and your work. And certainly I've admired you for a long time in your work, so it's great for the chance to chat today.
Thank you so much.
Should I go ahead?
Go ahead, please.
Great. Well, I appreciate the chance to chat with you, and I just really enjoyed those comments by Ms. Riggs. And I putting humanity into the work that we do is such an important thing to remember as we get deep in the weeds on a lot of these utility issues we cover. So I enjoyed hearing from her. I've been at FERC, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, for about 6 months now, and many of you know my colleague Chairman Rich Glick, and also the role of the commission, which is to ensure customer protection and reliability on the electricity grid, as well as some responsibilities under the Natural Gas Act. And I guess coming in, my priority is to ensure that FERC protects those grid customers and does ensure reliability, while at the same time we try to remove barriers to the massive opportunity that this changing market around us is presenting. We know that federal, state, and local policy, electric utility commitments, customer expectations, and certainly technological advancements are prompting an unprecedentedly swift transformation of this system that's been static for a long time, not just of the generation resource mix, but also of the way energy systems operate and the way and interact. And so what does FERC do? For me, this translates into ensuring that we have transmission and interconnection policies that spur sufficient but cost-effective infrastructure to support the resources coming online. Second is to make market improvements so that the electricity markets and energy markets are providing accurate price signals to support a reliable and cost-effective future with a new resource mix that performs when needed. Third is to ensure that we're safeguarding cybersecurity in addition to physical security as the system changes and in the face of increasing threats. And finally, and important to me, is ensuring that we have public access to and engagement with the Commission's processes. So, as I mentioned, we've got, I'm new, and you mentioned, we have a new slate of 5 commissioners. Chairman Glick is taking us down really important paths in terms of the critical issues of the day, and we're running to keep up. I'll provide a few comments about the changing reliability landscape that's underlying these changing market dynamics, and then I'll touch briefly on transmission and markets. And if you have a question or two, I'd love the chance to hear them. So increasingly, the bulk power system is facing a new set of challenges, right? We have climate change specifically bringing challenges in the form of increased hurricanes, the polar vortexes, sea level rise, wildfires, and more. And while none of these may be wholly caused by a change in climate, certainly we are starting to see a pattern and have an expectation of increased numbers of extreme weather events. Texas happened a couple of months ago. We just call it Texas. Obviously, it's the extreme and dangerous cold weather events that they faced in that state, including members of my family, as well as in the middle of the country. That's only 2 months old, and now we're turning and saying, uh-oh, summer's coming in a month, and it's going to be really hot, especially in the West and in California. We remember the extreme heat that happened there last summer. We're facing drought conditions for this summer. And, I think the system operators, the utilities, and the stakeholders out there are really working hard and to ensure that they do all they can to put the state and the region in better position than they were at the beginning of last year, appreciating that they're not going to understand wholly, but need to weather these summer stresses that are likely to follow. We've got some filings at FERC from the region to get ready for the summer, and so I won't comment more specifically on those, but I will say that My staff and I are looking closely at these proceedings and certainly stand ready to help as part of ensuring that we can get through the summer safely. And then, of course, we have to turn and are already turning to the need to shore up reliability on a longer term basis in the face of these challenges. I think there's a lot of important coordination to happen. I think countries around the world have learned a lot about this, and we have information to share. So I love the opportunity to engage with you all as participants in USEA on these issues. And just as a little plug, I'll note that we have a technical conference coming up on June 23rd and 24th on Western resource adequacy issues, which will be streamed online. We also have another technical conference that is new on extreme weather and climate change coming up on June 1st and June 2nd. So you can find those on the ferc.gov website. And I'll touch a little bit on transmission as well as markets related to these changing dynamics. Our transmission grid is old. It's done a great job of providing affordable electric service for decades upon decades. And before we even get into the conversation around policy choices, customer preferences, economics of one resource type versus another, we have a lot to do just to modernize the grid, just to keep it safe and reliable and worthy, if you will, of the U.S. economy and the way that it operates today. There's lots of studies that suggest that we need to invest billions upon billions of dollars in new transmission investment, both to modernize the grid and to ensure cost-effective achievement of some of the clean energy policy goals emerging around the country. There's a recent Princeton study that I've talked about a few times, which suggests that the lowest cost approach to a 2050 net zero policy goal, which is kind of a straw that we are all able to talk around, requires a tripling of high voltage transmission investment by 2030. Excuse me, a 60% increase, and then another tripling by 2050. That's a lot, and we're already halfway through 2021 already. So there's a lot of work to do, and we're really going to need every tool in the arsenal when it comes to figuring out how to do this cost effectively. I think there's a lot of good work already happening across the states in the country. The MVP lines are an oldie but goodie example from a decade ago, where the grid operator in the middle of the country called MISO states actually in MISO came together and said, we're going to need a new set of lines from both an economic perspective and a policy perspective, as well as a reliability perspective. They came together, they put forward a set of lines that were paid for by customers across the region, and those lines just continue to play dividends, including in the recent extreme cold weather events in Texas, where they were able to help move power where it was needed, at least to some extent. There's good things happening related to offshore wind transmission development in the East. Governors with clean energy goals are talking to each other about how they can get there. And we don't want to get in the way as a commission of all that good work happening across the states. Chairman Glick has announced that he is working with the states to start thinking about these transmission issues together. And I think that's a really important step towards breaking through some of the issues related to cost allocation for new transmission investment, which is admittedly hard, as well as the siting issues that take place at the state level, separated out from the FERC processes related to transmission development. I think the last issue I'll touch on initially is markets and electricity markets. So for over 2 decades now, regional energy markets have really effectively harnessed competition to the benefit of customers in their regions to ensure cost-effective rates, but also reliability. These markets exist in regions called regional transmission organizations or independent system operators, and utilities in these regions have come together to more effectively and efficiently share their transmission lines and provide an opportunity for competitive generation. So these regions have gone really well, have provided a lot of benefits, And they're now facing a time of unprecedented change. As I started out at the beginning of my comments, the resource mix is changing quickly. The markets were designed around a set of resources that still participate, but aren't the only players in the markets. And therefore, there's innovation required. The markets are going through growing pains a little bit, but they're also coming out of those. And we're getting a lot of good ideas on the table at the commission about how we're going to manage the transition on that front. In the East, the capacity markets have gotten a lot of attention if you pay attention to these kind of wonky trade press items. And it seems like stakeholders are aligned in movement forward in different ways, but certainly forward for an agreement that it's time to move forward from the status quo. And certainly in the West, there's a lot of hard work going on, as I spoke about a little bit earlier, on resource adequacy issues. So I'm really happy to see this coordination. I think this is the approach that the commission should take when it comes to these important issues that really implicate state choices. And that's something that I'm committed to. So I guess with that, I will stop and say thank you so much for the chance to speak with you and to get to know your community.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. And what would you say is easier to do? Is it easier sometimes to get through the eye of the needle or to build a pipeline these days? It seems like the challenges to construction of major new infrastructure of any sort, and certainly particularly in your jurisdiction, gas pipelines, that seems to be such a huge challenge and such a controversial challenge. Understanding that there are limitations on what you can and can't say, would you say that consumes 50% of your time, those type of issues? Getting in perspective how the agenda looks, how much time you spend, some of it on extremely technical related issues, not just in the rate area, but in the environmental area, really getting into the real deep specifics of environmental issues associated with the pipelines and all. Just was wondering what your vision is, not on any specific case, but just how to deal with this. Are there more scientists needed at Ferc? Is there more coordination with other federal or state agencies? Is there a process to enable the construction of infrastructure which is needed while not insulting the environmental issues associated with it?
Sure. Well, you came right to the hardest issue. I thought you might have a question about that. First of all, the Ferc staff is working really hard. There's a lot going on, a lot of competing priorities. So I think in terms of their time and how they divide it, the pie is growing. It's more than 100%. I think we now have 2 pies of time that we're dividing up. Every day is different. And the pipeline issues have been at the forefront of the news. But the issues have been a long time coming. I think, then Chairman McIntyre in 2018 recognized the idea that we've got this policy statement driving the way that we come to the conclusion to approve or certify a new gas pipeline infrastructure investment was outdated, and it may need improving to keep up with the times. And so it gets a lot of attention, and it is a really hard and controversial issue for good reason. But I think we can go a long way to improving the situation by updating this policy. And I'm really looking forward that we still have the comments to get through that we have, because we've reopened this policy statement for further input on the record in the last few months. And so, yeah, it is hard. I think there's a lot of change is hard from any perspective. So whether or not you're particularly supportive of developing a pipeline for a reliability purpose, and you've set out to do that as a company, or you're a landowner who has concern about the impacts of that pipeline, change is scary across that spectrum, right? And so what we need to do is, I think, take these comments into account and come up with a fair policy so that we can get to a place of certainty kind of from the set of stakeholders who might be implicated across the spectrum.
It's incredibly complex and involves every aspect imaginable of science and the indigenous peoples or environmental justice and the entire package of issues that present themselves. And it's got to be incredibly challenging to take on all those issues. But thank you for your incredible hard work in that arena. Also, with respect, we've heard a lot about cybersecurity and on the wonderful presentation by Cheryl a few minutes ago. In the cybersecurity front, is Ferc, I know, is and has been for some time intensely dedicated to dealing with that issue. Could you just discuss? Obviously, some of it is not discussable. Some of it has security implications, but just as a general proposition, do you see the FERC playing a greater role vis-a-vis cybersecurity with respect to the energy infrastructure in the country?
Yes, it's a really important question, and I think, well, as you know, the FERC's jurisdiction is broadly over the bulk electric system. That is not the same case on the pipeline infrastructure side, but focusing on the issues within the Commission's jurisdiction, there isn't a more important question. And as the world gets smarter and as technology evolves, the risk gets greater. I think we've known that. We know that intuitively, but it's like everything. If it's not in front of you that day, it doesn't necessarily the thing that you spend your time on. The SolarWinds experience at the end of last year really shook us all awake again, as events unfortunately do. And what I'm new to this, and I won't pretend to be an expert on all the nuances of what we're trying to do at the Commission, but I have got my head around the framework that we use to think about both the foundational ongoing cybersecurity standards and then the opportunity to work with industry, to work with our government partners in the instances of these in some cases dangerous attacks. So I think if there's anything I needed to be prepared to take seriously coming into this role, I'd say that's it.
Well, it's true in many parts of the world, and USEA has been extremely active on this topic, and has worked with USAID. We put on a series of 15 different conferences with some of the top scientists and thinkers in the country from the international standpoint, and literally tens of thousands of players around the world tune in to these technical but nonetheless understandable and digestible conferences. It's an issue which is clearly gone way up, even beyond what it has been in the past, because of the increasing international pressure in this arena by malfeasors or malign actors of one sort or another. So thank you for your incredible work and dedication and thoughtfulness on that topic. I know it is of extreme interest to our members and all of those who are tuned in today. And I know that FERC will certainly be a leader in it. And I know you have a very sophisticated staff that is working hard with the president's other players and other players internationally too, to take this on. And I assume that FERC is also looking at the exact technology and equipment that's being utilized across the board to see how that plays into the totality of this system of keeping things running.
That's right, and the staff is sophisticated on these issues and across the board, which has been really helpful to support me and my staff as we get up and running. So certainly we're looking forward to the opportunity to interact with you all, and I hope I can score an invitation to one of those events just to listen and get the chance to understand the perspectives of other countries who are dealing with these issues.
We hope that you see USEA and its members as resources who stand ready to help and give their insights as to what's happening, what they see happening anytime, because I think this is too important an issue to not have that type of dialogue on an ongoing basis. And certainly perhaps some of the international things that USEA has done may be of use to you too, although I'm sure that the cybersecurity experts working in the president's office and so on are very aware of it. But we can ever do anything vis-a-vis a briefing or discussion, we'd be honored to participate in any way.
That's great. Thank you, Sheila.
Well, can you speak a bit about the public participation office at Ferc and what all is going on there, and what's your role in getting that rolling and off the ground?
Sure. I'm honored that Chairman Glick has delegated me to help him lead on this initiative. And some of the participants today know that in 1978, Congress put forward some amendments to the Federal Power Act that would have set up this office. And the idea was to assist the members of the public in the issues within the commission's jurisdiction. So it was a broad mandate. The office had, for various reasons, has not been set up, and we got directions from Congress in December of 2020 saying, hey, what's going on with this office? Give us a report by June. So we have been working to try and get public input in an expeditious fashion to help inform that report to set up that office. And we are committed, we are committed to getting that office up and running in 2021. There's a couple of I've heard lots of things that people ask about or wonder about with this office. The idea is that members of the public, representing communities, representing landowners, consumer advocates, and not members of the public, sovereign tribes and representatives of those tribes, sometimes struggle to participate in commission proceedings because they're not Ferc lawyers. They don't have an idea how to get onto the e-library system, register, get into the docket. And so this effort is to help them do that. It's not intended to be an advocacy shop within the commission, which there has been some question about. It's intended to be a public outreach and education center so that people who say, hey, I want to weigh in on this proceeding, know how to actually file dockets or comments in an ongoing docket. I think the goal is to make the commission's decision-making process more durable. And that happens by making sure that we have the chance to hear from, the broad set of stakeholders who may have interest in any given case.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. And we look forward to seeing you again in the future. I apologize for the background noise here. There's a band playing out on Freedom Plaza, and they're really enjoying the sunshine a lot. And so we would bring out a brass band to hear what you have to say, but
that's great.
Anyway,
well, enjoy it.
To host you today, and an honor to have you participate with us. And we look forward to talking to you a lot more.
Great. Thank you, Sheila. Have a great rest of your forum.
Thank you so much.
Take care.